Welcome back to Oxburgh, everybody. I'm Tim Eister, and in today's episode, we're going to be continuing to develop the Waterfront in Old Town. We've got the city in a working condition, we've balanced the budget, we've got everything under control, and now we can start to work on some more detail-oriented builds, and I have a little bit of cleanup to do in this Old Town section, so we're going to be devoting a lot of the time in this episode to the Waterfront just next to Old Town. So I'm just going to quickly recap what we've done so far in the Oxburgh series. So we started things off flying out of the gate, building a really well-detailed, realistic Old Town, and then everything kind of went downhill from there for a number of episodes. But finally, in the last episode, we've completely turned the tides over, and we're actually doing really well economically. We've just rolled over $1 million in the bank. I've let the simulation play out for quite some time, and this means that we're ready to start actually having fun with this series. However, there is one more chore that we need to clear up before we're able to move into any fun, detail-oriented projects, and that is dealing with our landfill. So I've expanded this landfill probably 3 times because it keeps filling up in a matter of minutes. Literally like every 20 minutes in real time, I'm having to expand this landfill, and it's pretty much to its maximum size if I don't move these power lines here. And this is a problem because it's already like a pretty massive size, and we actually need to solve the problem of it getting filled up in the first place. And plus, I always envisioned this little gully valley area here to be kind of more park-esque and a bit more posh than this, so I really don't want there to be a landfill over here. That is why I've let the simulation run just long enough to where we can finally afford a recycling center in an effort to hopefully empty out this landfill over here, and hopefully we won't require any landfill whatsoever on this map. Now the question is, where do we plop this building, as it is rather large, and space is really a luxury on this map. Now I think probably the most logical place to put it would be over here by our geothermal power plant, although it makes for quite a drive across town to go collect garbage, whereas where the landfill sits right now is quite central. But I think we're gonna go form before function in this episode. So here goes nothing. I'm gonna plop this building down right over here. It's gonna mess up the terrain a little bit, but this might not be the final resting place of this building. I just really need to get garbage sorted on this map. Oh crap, you know what? I didn't even think. It's gonna be a lot more than 80,000 a month to upkeep this building because we have a ton of wages. All right, well, let's start by, can I just remove the landfill? Am I able to do that? Yeah, it looks like you can just do that. Get rid of the garbage completely. All right, so I have 15 vehicles in this recycling center, and just from deleting the landfill, oh my god, I've pretty much recouped all of my my losses here. I'm still losing a little bit of money, but losing 33,000 a month versus like 150,000 isn't quite that bad. So yeah, we got 15 trucks that are gonna go out and start collecting garbage, and hopefully that will be enough because I have no money to build any upgrades on this building. But at least one thing that I can rest assured of is the recycling center will first pick up the garbage from the geothermal plant, which is the biggest income driver in the city. Like, we're exporting a ton of power. That's what's pretty much keeping us alive at this point. Okay, so we're back to losing money. Absolutely fantastic. Well, hopefully we can turn the tides again this episode, as we're going to be developing Old Town. So I am going to jump into time-lapse mode now, and we're going to start building out the surroundings around Old Town, and we're going to be using a lot more of these French assets. So I think it's going to be pretty cool once this is done. So sit back, guys, and enjoy. Now, you guys know already that Oxburgh is heavily inspired by Quebec City in real life, and you're going to see that throughout this episode, I'm going to be basing different points of interest on real life locations within Quebec City. Starting with this park here that is just next to the shoreline, I'm going to take heavy inspiration by this beautiful park in real life that appears to be kind of like a cruise ship port slash a multi-purpose dock, judging by the equipment and the boxes and crates that are along the shore. And I'm really gonna sound like a travel agent throughout this episode, but I've only ever been to Quebec City maybe 3 times in my life. So most of what I'm going to build in this episode is totally based off of memory, off of pictures that I've taken during my travels there, but mostly Google Maps. And luckily, Quebec City is in 3D on Google Maps, and it makes things so much easier when looking around town and, you know, especially when building like some little nitty-gritty areas. It just makes things so much better. And one of the unique characteristics about Quebec City is if you were to arrive in town via cruise ship, for example, you would dock along the shoreline, and the first area of the city that you would stumble into is kind of this lower town that's closer to the shore, that's, you know, a little bit lower in elevation. And this is one of my favorite areas in the city because there's just so many nice little, you know, gift shops and bistros and restaurants and, you know, gift shops and things, because, you know, the city is very touristy. And once you've explored this lower area, typically what one would do is then mosey their way on up the hill and then start exploring the various other areas, kind of the upper town, I guess we'll call it. I don't know if there's officially any like proper terms on what these areas are called in real life, but we're gonna go for the lower town and the upper town, I guess, in this episode. So what I'm gonna be working on this episode is mostly the lower town. So anything that is below the hill, or I guess outside of the walls that we built in episode 1. So you're gonna see a lot of similarities between the real life city if you take the time to explore it in Google Maps, or better yet, in real life. But I'm gonna be constructing a lot of these points of interest in the game. Not really super closely, but I'm just gonna be taking some little points of inspiration here and there. So we're gonna start off with this beautiful park here, and then we're gonna move on to zoning some additional French buildings. And for the zone types that are not building because I don't have any demand, I'm going to be manually plopping them. So my demand right now is kind of all over the place, and at this very moment I pretty much only have high density demand, which there are barely any French buildings for. So I'm going to be forced to hand plop a lot of these buildings, but that's okay because, you know, people are still going to move in and the city is still going to be functional. But yeah, we're definitely going to zoom in a lot this episode. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of things. This episode is going to be back into, I guess, the more detail-oriented style that I've been going for thus far in this series. So it'll be pretty exciting. I'm really looking forward to develop this city. And yeah, it's going to be really, really cool. Now, that brings me to the topic of, I've been getting a few comments here and there wondering, well, what's your main inspiration for this city? Well, obviously, I've already stated that it's mostly based off of Quebec City for now, but I want to keep this city rather unique, and I want to make use of most, if not all, of the region packs that we have access to now. My plan is to implement various styles from real cities around the world, both in Europe and North America. So that being said, we have the German pack, we have the French pack, which we're playing with in this episode. We also have the UK pack. So I'd like to actually make use of all of these buildings, and with the bonus of having a really great map where building multiple towns is possible. You know, I think later on in this series, we're going to see some other European style towns such as this. Maybe we'll see another walled city in a German style, perhaps. Or maybe we'll see a kind of UK neighborhood somewhere in the city. So I'm not really going to take any inspiration from one singular city or one location, but I'd like to have a big hodgepodge of different styles, different architectural styles, and city layouts, etc. in different parts of this map. Now, I recently just traveled to San Diego, California, and every time that I travel to a city or to a different location, I just get so inspired and I'm like, oh, I have to build this in City Skylines. So we might even see like some SoCal inspired locations throughout the map. In a few weeks, I'm actually traveling to New York as well. You know, we have some wonderful northeastern style buildings now, so I'm sure I'm going to be making use of those as we go along in this city. So all that to say, I think this city is going to be quite unique. It's going to be very diverse, making use of pretty much every single asset that we have in the game. That is the hope. But it's also going to be quite challenging, I think, because this map has quite an unforgiving terrain, and I don't have a ton of space to build with. But that's exactly what I wanted, because I don't want this city to suffer the same fate as Bixton, where we just have too much room to build, right? And there's just not enough content for every neighborhood to be unique. You know, I want every single part of this city to have its own charm, its own uniqueness. So we're really going to be diving into each individual neighborhood in this series a lot more. And, you know, I guess I want each neighborhood throughout the city to have kind of like a sentimental value, right? I want to kind of get attached to every neighborhood. You know, we already have Hillside, we have the beach that we constructed, and I really like that area. And, you know, it's going to evolve over time, it's going to change, but, you know, I'm already pretty fond of it. So I hope you guys are following along too, and, you know, hopefully you're going to enjoy the way that the city is going to progress. And like I said, I'm always open to any suggestions or any tips or anything that you guys would like to see implemented within the city. So here, I think I went a little too crazy with the shrubbery and the trees. It was blocking the view. If I zoomed in, the trees were just totally blocking the view from the upper portion of that wall. So I decided to delete most of the trees and just basically blanket the area with small bushes and whatnot. This is a pretty steep hill, and just like in Quebec City, which is even more of a steep hill, it's literally a cliff in real life. There's not really anything more than like bushes and whatever. There's no lawns to upkeep. So that's why I'm going for like the non-manicured area here. But you know, it adds some texture, it adds some life to the whole region, adding some beautiful textures by Sully and various other creators. We're able to achieve, you know, some nice unmanicured grounds right below the wall. And with that being done, I'm ready to zoom in here, and we're gonna build this little central square. And just like in the real Quebec City in real life, in the lower portion of the city, we have like this kind of public open space, and there's a bunch of really fine restaurants and things around this area. So that's kind of what I'm trying to recreate here. I'm just gonna go a little heavy on the propage. There's this really cool stage prop that I'm going to plop down here, you know, for any events that may be going on. Followed by some food carts. And then we're going to plop down a bunch of seating areas and tables for any customers. And you know, Oxburgh wouldn't be Oxburgh if we didn't plop some beautiful murals along Old Town. I know I'd really like to make the city of murals, so we have such a collection in our mod list that I'd like to build a lot of these throughout the town. Not only in the historic downtown, but you know, pretty much anywhere that we can fit them. It would be pretty cool to have murals all over. Now this part of the build I kind of struggled with. I probably stared at this blank piece of grass for an hour before deciding what I wanted to build here, until I stumbled upon a really great asset that I thought would fit perfectly in here. I just had to do a little bit of terraforming to get it to fit. But I found this really cool, I think it is a signature building. It's kind of like a container pier area that has been transformed into kind of like a little bar slash eating scene. Not really sure, but it looks really cool. And I just thought that it would fit perfectly within this area. Not really inspired by Quebec City or anything in particular. However, in a city a little more close to me, in the good old Maritimes, St. John, New Brunswick has a very similar kind of setup where they have a series of containers along the shoreline that is host to various events throughout the summer. You know, there's concerts, or you know, there's various other things that'll make use of the venue, but it is pretty cool. It's kind of like this massive structure that is totally made out of shipping containers. So I guess it's a great way to recycle them. And you know, these kind of buildings, these kind of raggedy looking container buildings are all the rage, it seems, nowadays. You know, people are buying them up and converting them into homes and little businesses nowadays, which is, you know, pretty cool. I think it's a pretty unique idea to do this. So Oxburgh is going to follow the trend and is going to have its very own container shipping pier kind of venue. But yeah, it honestly looks really nice along the water here. And for this next part, not every square inch of a city can be all posh and luxurious and beautiful and manicured. We still need to allow some room for some more gritty and industriousness. So that is why I am going to reserve this little piece of land here to some boring old parking and just a big old slab of concrete that is going to feature some pallets and barrels and just random stuff that has been left aside from when this area was put to use. I guess maybe there would have been a ship that was docked here at one point, offloading cargo. And you know how it is. If you go to your local pier, if you live in a coastal city, you'll always find all kinds of junk and stuff along the shore. You know, for example, in my hometown, being in the Maritimes, you'll often find a ton of fishing equipment along the marina and, you know, along pretty much any part of the shore, because lobster fishing is just such a massive industry in my area. But in this case, I don't know, maybe there is other types of fishing industry in Oxburgh that would be making use of this dock here. So I'm just going to be plopping down some barriers and basically just running through my props menu, seeing what I can find. You know, a lot of what I do is kind of experimental. You know, you can only plan so much far ahead, right? I don't know what I'm gonna stumble upon when I'm exploring all my props menus. So I just make the best use of it, and in this case, I just found some barrels and other things like that. So we're gonna make it look pretty cool. And then to kind of expand on what we were just talking about, this is another little plot of land that I had no idea what I wanted to build here. It's in a very challenging terrain, I would say. It's a pretty steep hill going down to the shoreline. So I figured, you know what, why not build some small industry, some little 2x2 or 2x3 industry zones, just to make sure we don't have any big factories that spawn up here. But it's not uncommon to find all kinds of little warehouses and things like that along any kind of pier or marina or you know, any dock, I guess. So that is what I'm building there, just some generic industry. And as we're waiting for those buildings to construct, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on the total opposite side of Old Town, along the canal that leads throughout downtown. And I'm just going to detail this little tiny piece of land that we haven't touched yet. And I have these wonderful northeastern style buildings, and I just felt like, you know, we have to have some more rundown areas in the town, right? Not the whole city can be totally perfect. So what I'm building here is just like an abandoned building right next to this row house. You know, perhaps there would have been a little store here or some sort of corner building, which has fallen into disrepair, and now it is an abandoned lot. But I gotta say, these northeastern style buildings are just so awesome. I love them. I love the brick texture that's on the side of it. You know, it totally sells the idea that, you know, there was once a neighboring building, but not anymore. So I'm just gonna run throughout this area, add some detail, add some textures and whatnot, and we're gonna soup up this place pretty good. Well, things are looking pretty sharp if I say so myself, but one thing that is not looking so nice is, oh my god. So, in the effort of saving money, I've lowered my healthcare service a little bit too much, and I think we're paying for it now. So I think this issue should resolve itself if we boost up our budget. Now, let me just take a quick look here. So it was at 64%, which is costing me $226,000 a month, and by raising this to 90%, let's say, that's going to raise this up to $295,000 a month, but I can certainly afford it now that we're generating a lot more tax revenue with all these new people that are moving in. So let's just take a quick gander here. What other services do I may want to increase? As long as everything is, you know, above 80%, I guess we should still be in the clear. Police administration, 108,000. Maybe I can boost this back up to 90,000 because one of the biggest complaints is high crime in the city right now. Let's just take a quick peek here. What is our crime statistics? So our crime probability has crept back up to 28%, and I think that's a direct result of lowering our budget, but boosting it back to 90% should bring this back up, thus increasing the living standards in our city. And oh boys, wow, is our system ever struggling. Healthcare availability. Oh wow, our hospitals are currently overrun. I'm just curious over here. So we do have half of this hospital is currently filled up, and then we have our little tiny clinic over here, and oh my god, it has just completely been overrun. Okay, so we're definitely going to want to invest in a new hospital. I think it's time. What do we do here? Let's take a minute to see what our options are. I could do a medical clinic. Do I do maybe a northeastern style clinic? Oh wow, look at this. This fits perfectly along our main street here. Unfortunately, it's going to displace some businesses, but I don't necessarily mind because a lot of these businesses, they look very similar to one another. So I wouldn't mind getting rid of one or two businesses to make our town look a little better. So I'm gonna go and maybe see if I can plop. Oh no, I'm not gonna be able to plop it on that side of the street. Yeah, I guess right here should be fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. 60,000, and then it's gonna cost us up to 75,000 a month in upkeep. But we really don't have a choice at this point. So I'm gonna go ahead and plop this down, and that is really gonna drive down our monthly balance. But as long as we're still in the green, I'm happy. And you know, we're on the uptrend now. More and more people are moving in, and things are looking great. So I'm gonna let the simulation play out here for just a moment. We're gonna let all of these patients waiting for ambulances to clear up, and then that will pretty much do it for this episode. And in addition to building a new hospital, there is a number of other things that I've totally neglected so far in the city. One of which is road maintenance. I have completely ignored this ever since we started the city, and we are certainly going to pay for this sooner or later. I'm already starting to see a few accidents happen quite frequently in the city. So let's go ahead and, without further ado, place down a maintenance depot, which is going to cost me 75,000, which is a pretty big chunk of change, and then 15,000 a month in upkeep. But that should be fine. I can certainly afford this, not a problem. And this building, where should I plop it? I think I'm going to build it over in this corner of the map. I think this is going to be quite industrious over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue this road in this direction. So we're going to make a sharp 90-degree turn, and then I'm just going to draw this road kind of following the coastline, but actually not really, because I need to provide enough room for our maintenance depot. So maybe I'll just run another road like this. And then we'll connect everything up just like this. That should look pretty nice. And then I'm going to provide another direct connection to our main highway running through here. And now, hopefully, I have left enough room for our road maintenance depot. Oh, crap. It's in the opposite orientation, so I'll just build a little side road like this. And I think that should do it. Let's go here, and then look at that. Just enough room. There we go. Do I want to build this upgrade right off the bat? Oof, no, it is quite expensive, and it only gives us an extra 5 vehicles, which might be worth it, actually. But maybe not now, because I've really dipped into my profits to plop this building down. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how these 10 individual vehicles are going to fare with upgrading the entire road network, which is in really bad shape right now. But hopefully they'll be able to fix it. And on top of all this, there's another thing that I've completely ignored thus far in the series, and that is a park maintenance depot. If I go around town and I click on every single individual park in the city, you can see that our maintenance is right down to 0. So that's another thing that we need to plop. And let's just check if we can afford it. Oh my god, we most certainly cannot. But we don't really have a choice, do we? Well, we kind of have the choice because parks are not really 100% essential, but I mean, we do have a nice collection of parks around town that we certainly want to properly upkeep. So the park maintenance depot is going to cost me $90,000 up front and then $20,000 a month in upkeep. Oh my god, can we do it? We certainly can't right now, but in the near future, maybe we'll be able to do that. Because, you know, parks, as nice as they are, they're not 100% essential for the survival of everybody. Uh-oh, so it looks like we're actually losing money now. You know, I was really looking forward to lower taxes in this episode, but that doesn't look like it's gonna happen. Oh my god. Wow, a monthly balance is just boosting up. What is going on? Oh my god, it looks like we had a big fire over here at one point. So let's get rid of these buildings. But it looks like my ambulances are doing a really nice job at collecting all of these patients. That's really cleared up a lot of these patients here that are waiting. But yeah, we're losing money now, which is not really ideal. And I don't want to have to lower any services. Ah, our roads. Okay, so this probably has to do with my roads because my maintenance vehicles are out. And I used to actually make money with my roads with parking fees. But that is no longer the case. It probably just took a minute for my road maintenance depot to ramp up. So unfortunately, it looks like I'm probably going to have to reduce healthcare services again, just a little bit. So I'm going to reduce this to 80%. We were at 64 before. I'm hoping that at 80%, we're still going to be able to function okay, especially after having plopped that second hospital. But that should at least raise the our profits again. And you know what? It's raised our profits just enough to where we can likely afford a park maintenance depot. So let's go ahead and plop one of these. I guess let's just plop it right beside the road maintenance depot. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not going to do any upgrades right now. And I'm hopeful that this is going to be good. Oh my god. Yeah. Totally forgot about wages again. Wages are incredibly expensive for city services. And just like that, we're losing a whopping $55,000 a month. Oh my god, we're about to go into the negatives here, guys. So in that case, what I'm going to be forced to do here is lower some services once again. Garbage management I can lower as well. This is costing us a fair chunk of change. We're way over capacity in garbage management anyways, so I think if I lower this, we'll be okay. Same as medical. I'm going to lower it just a tad bit more. And parks and recreations, now that it's costing us a lot to maintain these parks, I'm going to reduce this to 80%. because if not all our parks get proper maintenance right off the bat, it's not really a big deal. But there's nothing else that I could really cut into, I think. The only thing, I do have a small clinic over here that is completely overrun with patients, and it is costing me quite a bit of money. But this medical clinic over here, the big new one that we just built, can probably take all of these patients. Oh, but maybe that might not be necessary because I'm actually collecting a fair bit of money again. So I think I'm just gonna leave it at that, guys. Because we're making money again. You know, we don't have much in the bank, but we're making a healthy amount. We have some residential demand that is growing. Our people are happy. Not too happy about my taxes, but you know, that's fine. Maybe we'll be able to lower those at some point. Oh wow, check this out, guys. Just a few minutes down the road, no pun intended, look at our road condition. This main corridor here went from glowing red to a beautiful shade of green, and the entire city is on its way to becoming in perfect condition as far as roads go. So really, really great news to hear that this one road maintenance depot, no upgrades, no nothing, just this one standalone building will be enough to service the entire city for quite some time to come, I think. So that's great news. And with that, that is going to wrap up this episode. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, as usual, drop a like down below, drop a comment, let me know what you think of this episode. Also, if you aren't already, consider subscribing to the channel if you enjoy my content. And if you want to support the channel even further, check out my Patreon. Shout out to all my Patreons and my supporters. Thank you guys so much. You guys are the ones that keep me going. And with that, again, thanks so much for watching, guys, and I will catch you in the next episode. Take care.